Okay, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to another social emotional workshop. Today we are having a conversation on how to make sure our students are successful in school, and that's a great topic. We have Joe and Teresa back from Care of Southeast Michigan. Welcome back, you guys. So great to have you again.
Hi, everyone.
Hello. Okay, folks. Active parenting, that is our curriculum that we use at CARE. It is an evidence-based, right, research-based curriculum that there is evidence behind it, as in they take a pre-test about their parenting philosophy, and then after 6 weeks of education, they take a post-test to see how things improved. So all the programs that we do at CARE are evidence-based. And I'm just going to go with session 6 here, which is the last session of our school-aged parenting class. And this is really focused on what parents provide for their children. And I know we're all educators, so look at this as, your children, if you have school-aged children, on how you could apply these in your families. Or I would really love for you to take yourself off of mute and express on what you need us to know as educators, what you would like the parents to do, or what you do in your classrooms for their own school success. All right, but this program here that I'm doing right now is based on parent to school age child. So let's get started here. Teresa mentioned this before in some of her past trainings about the 3 different parenting styles, right? So parent involvement, how much involvement do you kind of need for that child to be successful in their education? And here the dictator is that completed circle here, which is over involved, where you're going to tell them when to study, when to do their homework. You're going to be so involved in that child's education that he's going to say, well, school is more important to you than it is to me. And then they can use that as power struggles. They can use it as displaying inadequacies. They can not do their homework for attention seeking. So if we're over involved, that means we take their education more importantly than they do. And once they find that out, they use that as, I don't want to say as a weapon, but they use that as a way to get their needs met, whether it's attention, power, or revenge. Has anybody ever heard of a parent say that my kid, he's so smart. He used to do so great in school, and now he's failing. I don't understand why. Well, he might be failing for revenge because he has no control over his autonomy in his education. So now he's using failing or not handing in homework to hurt you because he wants you to feel the way he feels, or she. I always say he, I'm sorry, because I only have one son, so don't take that as gender specific. All right, so on the other side of that is the doormat parent. This is the under involved, that I'm sure you as educators could know that parents are like, hey, you're the school, it's your job to educate my kid. So I wash my hands of it and I say, my kid's failing, it's your fault as educators, as teachers, as a school district. But that's the under-involved parent. You don't have any expectations of getting homework done, them getting their homework done. You don't have expectations if they fail. It's just like, oh, well, he's going to get what he needs, or she's going to get what she needs. That's totally under-involved. In both of those, dictator and doormat, they have very unhealthy outcomes. So we're really going to focus on the active parent. And the active parent is when you have that freedom of that doormat here within the limits. So we are going to be supportive, but we're not going to overtake. And I love this one quote that I can't remember where I got it from, but it was, back off, but don't back out. All right, so if there's power struggles and stuff, we want to back out of that power struggle, but we don't want to back off so much that it's a doormat parent where we don't help them succeed. So there is that fine line on how much support to give that child. And I always tell parents that you're the specialist in your child. Yeah, we're parent education specialists, but you know your child the best. So kind of understand what that child needs. How much autonomy does he need? Is he self-directed? Is she able to work alone? Does she need support? So we have to understand, what does our child need? But once you start feeling like your parenting authority is being challenged, or you're frustrated and overwhelmed that they are failing and you don't know what to do, those are the both ends of that spectrum. So if you're feeling frustrated about that child's success at school, that means something isn't going well, which means our involvement or our over-involvement needs to be tweaked a little bit. So we're going to talk about the 7 things that we can do. And number 1 is the parent needs to show up and support. And here in this chapter 6, it says there's lots of things that contribute to a child's success in school. And there's a lot of research on this. And of course, quality of the teachers, the school leadership, school facilities, the curriculum, education level of the child's parents, income of the child's parents, the parents' involvement in the child's learning, all those are indicators on, if that child's, how successful that child's going to be. But the factor is that over 200 studies have shown all of these, but they named the number one. The number one is the parents' involvement in the child's learning. Do they show up? So with parent involvement, kids do get better grades. They do better on standardized testing and higher attendance, graduate and go on to college if we have this active parenting role that we show up. And what does showing up mean? I mean, how much? I mean, so that's showing up to parent-teacher conferences, that's showing up to their dance recital, or their music recital, their plays, or their sporting events. We need to show up. You always see in the commercials or movies where that kid is on stage or he's on the field playing and he's looking at that empty seat where dad is supposed to be or mom is supposed to be. Mom's always working or dad's always working, and they're really not showing up. I'm doing all this hard work and I can't feel that success because nobody cares. And it could be because you are working 2 jobs, and that's fine, but find ways where you can show up and support that effort for your child. Number 2 is getting to know your child's teacher. I tried to track down this video. It was a really funny video a colleague of mine plays at the beginning of this training. It's Roseanne. Roseanne's husband, what's her name, Dan? His name, Dan? Yeah, so Dan has to go to the principal's office because the son got in trouble. So he goes up to the principal or to the desk of the front, administration. And they're like, who are you? He goes, oh, I'm such and such's father, Dan Connor. And then the kid's sitting in the chair in trouble. He goes, he's not my father. I don't know. I never saw this guy before. And the kid's pretending like, that's not my father. And it was just really humorous because after he proved he was the father, they said, oh, I thought you were dead, because the son said, my father's dead. Just out of humor and stuff. It's a really great skit. And I was so disappointed I couldn't find it to show it to you. Try to track it down on YouTube. I couldn't find it. But yeah, so the teacher, you don't even know your son's teacher. So get to know your teachers. And a way you can do that is let them know you appreciate them. Just to talk to them, say, I really appreciate you spending that extra time with my son and my daughter. Communicate that to them. Let them know that you value what they do. Man, teaching, man, I'm so glad that you're my son's teacher, man. He's really getting a lot out of you, and I really value the effort and the time. I know how hard this job is, so I really value you. Show confidence in them. Write them a letter, an encouragement letter, to say, I really appreciate the time you spent with my son, blah, blah, blah. I'm really seeing some improvements. Thank you so much. Oh man, I don't know. You guys are administrators, so let me know. I always ask teachers, because here in the book it says, parents who are involved and know their teachers pay more attention and more focus on their success. So I don't know if that's true or not, because if you never met the parents, do you let that child kind of sit in class and just, and not really, I shouldn't say care, because I know everybody cares about their students, but if you don't know their parents, do you let them fall through the cracks? I know you guys are professional educators, and I'm sure no one would actually say that, but maybe some feelings inside like, man, this kid is so challenging, nobody's supporting, I had never met the parents. And maybe you do have the empathy and you give extra care to that child whose parents don't show up. So would anybody like to share, disclose that? I mean, if you notice a student that doesn't have the parents showing up, do you pay extra attention to them because they don't have it? Or do you get frustrated that, well, I don't want to spend my time if nobody cares? I know it's a personal question to ask, but it was just curious in my mind. And I'll let you guys off the hook if you don't want to disclose that, but it's really an interesting question. Do you pay more attention or do you pay less attention?
Or just their thoughts about that comment from our book. You know, is that something that we should be sharing with parents? Is that so far out of the realm that it shouldn't even be mentioned?
Teresa, can you speak up? We can hardly hear you.
You got to put that.
There. Okay. Now I can
Thank
hear
you.
Okay. So I'm wondering if what you're trying to say is there any validity to that comment? Should we not even be using that in our parenting classes? Is that what you mean, Joe? That
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Because sometimes I say that to parents that, you know, when you don't show up, you know, those teachers, they're so overwhelmed, so overworked, man, they might not pay that extra attention. But if you show up and you encourage them and you get to know them and you communicate with them, now they have some accountability on paying, supporting an extra help and attention. Is that valid or not?
You know, I can remember teaching in Western in Mexican Town and Finney High School, and it gets to be a situation, I know, where the rubber meets the road, that you have to put your energies where you figure they're both going to be most successful. And there's a correlation between that parental involvement and what the student is going to be involved in. So not that you give up on the kid or anything like that, but it just is a matter of energy allocation, you know, in many ways. Yeah. And a lot of times it's not even intentional, you know. It's like you make it's like a triage situation. I'm talking about seriously, you have to make some decisions about where to expend your energy, you know. And so, you know, it's sad, but it's true.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I was looking for. And thank you for that, Alan. I really appreciate that, because it's like, I don't have all the time to give to this 1 or 2 or 10 students. It's overwhelming. I'm going to give it where, you know, I could, what's that, risk cost kind of, I'm thinking of investing.
The cost benefit.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's interesting. Thank you for that. So for a positive outcome, get to know your teachers. I mean, if you went to your teacher and say, hey, I really appreciate what you're doing for my son or daughter, you're almost kind of guilting them in a way to say, wow, thank you so much for paying attention to my child. Now that person's going to be like, oh, wow, that feels pretty good, you know, and you kind of focus on them a little more, even if it's unconsciously.
Well, my mom was the cook for the nuns at my Catholic school, and I know that I got a lot of extra attention for that.
Yeah. So if they know your parents, there is a little bit more connection to what they're doing with the children. All right. So number 3 is making learning a family priority. Right? Help your child understand that importance. So it begins with the atmosphere you develop in your own home about learning. So model the importance of learning. Take turns, like bringing an interesting article to the dinner table, right? You're saying, hey, why don't you, you know, okay, it's Larry, it's your turn, you know, to bring talking topic to the table, you know, and make it interesting, make it a priority of learning. I have something here underlined here. It says, go online after you watch a movie to learn about that movie. So you watch a movie, and I really got into the habit after I watch a movie, even by myself, that I go to the bonuses. After the movie bonuses and special features and stuff, and they kind of go through the whole movie on the character choices, the whole plot, the whole scene, and all that stuff. And it's so interesting. You can watch a movie and say, wow, that was cool, that was entertaining. But to watch the bonuses and features, that really kind of inspires that child that learning is important. Develop a plan before they play. So, you know, develop a work before play plan, right? So they know how important it is. How many of us read owner's manuals? I never used to be an owner manual reader or buying something and reading the directions before you.
And if they got the quick start guide, I'll read that.
Oh yeah, the quick start guide too. All right, maybe I need a little direction, but I can figure it out. But reading the owner's manual, oh my goodness, to encourage your child, the importance of reading and making learning a priority, man. It's really, really important. Compliment your kids on how they use their minds more than their ability to play sports. So whenever you see them using their mind and their intelligence, say, wow, man, that was really incredible that you took the time to figure that out. You spent a lot of time on that. And you really want to know the outcome, or you're really a good investigator. Let them know when they do use their mind, point out them using their mind instead of saying how strong and fast and how awesome they are with sports. All right, number 4, structure homework time. Now, I really like this one because I'd never structured homework time with my kid. I mean, he did his homework and stuff, but helping your kid create a regular work area. When I was younger, I did my homework on the living room floor, on the kitchen table, laying in bed, all uncomfortable. And I never had a structured work area. They said kids are more likely to do their homework if you have an area structured for them. They have all their material. They got their glue, their staplers, their pens, their highlighters. They got their books all in an area that they could kind of locate. Now, some houses, they might not be set up like that. There isn't a structured area. Maybe their rooms are small and there's really not enough room in the house for 2 or 3 structured areas of study for your children. But once you figure out how to do that homework and provide that work area and the equipment the children need to learn, we need to provide that, because if it's easy, the kids will do it. It's almost like I worked in the restaurant for a long time, and I'm talking about restrooms. If you don't make it easy for somebody to wash their hands, they're not going to wash their hands. You know, if the soap and the towel and the dryer and all that isn't available, it's too much work. I'm going to skip it. You need to make things available so people could do it without any thought. Same with structured homework times. They need to have a place to do their homework. Agree on that regular. One other thing about the regular work area and stuff. Something in the book here, it says kids have their own preferences about studying, and that's okay as long as they're able to concentrate. Myself, when I did my homework, it had to be complete silence, or I'd have to listen to music with no lyrics. I couldn't concentrate. But my son, he wanted to listen to rap music. I'm talking the beat and the bass. I mean, that's great music and stuff, but I used to always tell my kid, turn off that music and study. But he studies better when he's listening to his choice of music. So to structure that area to meet that child's needs, that was just my cultural kind of curse that study should be quiet. But if that child likes listening to music to study, who am I to say turn it off? So he's uncomfortable studying because I have to make it quiet when he likes to listen to his music. All right, so agree on a regular study time. This one is important to make that atmosphere a study time atmosphere. Like that study hour is the whole family's study hour. So if you guys are in the living room watching and laughing at movies and sitcoms and stuff, people are playing and you're saying, get in your room and study. Well, that's not a family priority. So if you want your kids to do their homework and be more successful doing their homework, agree that during this hour, it is family study time. Dad could read a magazine or the newspaper or have his tablet and read. Mom can read the magazines. The big brothers are, reading or doing something educational, and the school-age child is doing something educational. So not say have one child do homework by when it's loud and fun in other areas of the house. So agree on that 1 hour study time for the whole family. I really like that one. It really creates that positive homework atmosphere with no distractions. Because I can't stand doing homework while everybody else is laughing and having a ball in the living room. I'd be so distracted. Homework to-do list is a really great, because some of us can't keep all that in our heads. So, they have all kinds of stuff through the school with the logging in and having all your assignments listed out there.
Hey, you know what I always thought was important too, Joe, that I never was able to teach my kids or learn myself was when you teach a kid how to organize for like a project. Like if your project is due on this day, you have to at least have a rough draft by this day. You have to have this done by this day.
Timeline.
Work back. Yeah, timeline. That's it, Alan. Yeah, yeah. And I never learned that myself, neither did my kids. And they always waited till the 11th hour to do something. It drove me crazy.
Yeah. You know what I learned? If you wait to the last minute, it only takes you a minute. It's going to come out horrible, but you're right. That timeline where you're like, hey, this is due in 3 weeks, but let's work out a timeline. That kid may need that help structuring that. Awesome. Okay. The next one, read and talk with your child. So when you are reading, and everybody knows that, that 15 minutes of reading every night. My son had a learning disability and all his IEPs and stuff, they always said, read every night. Oh, before I want to step back just 1 minute on that quiet time for reading or for homework. Even if the child doesn't have any homework, it's still that 1 hour quiet time of the family. Say nobody has homework. But still between 6 and 7 is the family quiet time to read or do something learning involved. That creates that whole thing, whether they have homework or not, it's reading hour at the Galeno house. Interesting. All right, so now when we're reading with our kids to strengthen their memory, review what you read the last time, like you open up the new book here. So where did we leave off? What happened yesterday when we were reading? And encourage them thinking and reading comprehension. So build their vocabulary. I kind of knew what words my son didn't know just because I knew his kind of reading level and his education level. And I used to say, do you know what that means? And he'd say, yes. And I set him up too much. They're called setup questions. Because I said, do you know what that means? He says, yes. I said, what's it mean? I don't know. I did that so many times with my kid. Instead of just understanding, I know he doesn't know this big word, comprehension. So I might as well just read it and then say comprehension means after you read something, you kind of remember it and know what it's talking about. You're learning what that is. Instead of kind of saying, you know what that means? And then setting him up if he does. Anybody else have that? Do you know what that means? They say, yeah. And then you say, what does it mean? I can't tell you. I'm just answering the question.
And they tell you, I don't quite know how to put it.
Yeah. And I can feel that, man. I kind of have it in my head, but I can't articulate it. So even if we did volunteer that, comprehension means A, B, and C, X, Y, and Z. That can help them see what's floating around in their head and give them articulation to comprehend it a little deeper. So when you're reading, ask those questions: who, what, when, where, why. What do you think is going to happen next? You know, where do you think they're going to go on their secret vacation? What do you think the surprise is? So you're asking those questions to get that child involved in opening their minds. One thing I read about reading: when you're watching TV, only one part of your brain is activated. You can watch all this data and all these lights and things going on television and all this stuff, but one part of your mind is taking all that in: your vision, your occipital lobe, and stuff. But when you read, so many different parts of your brain are going. You're reading a story, and the words are creating pictures in your brain. So your brain is working like 10 times harder while you're reading than when you're watching a really exciting movie. You can watch a movie mindlessly, be entertained, laugh, but your brain is not working the way it is when you are reading. It's almost like mindless eating, where you're just digging in the potato chip bag and keep eating. It's just mindless. You're doing an activity, but it's not helping or stimulating anything. So reading makes your mind really expand. I used to read all nonfiction. And then when I met Teresa, well, I didn't even read before I met Teresa. And then Teresa gave me these books, you know, read this, read that. And I was like, wow. So I was reading all nonfiction. And then Teresa said, you got to read a novel. Read a novel, man. And I was like, why read a novel? It's not real. It's just fake. I want information. I want to learn. So I took her advice and I read a novel. It was The Kite Runner. My mind just exploded. Oh my goodness, the descriptions, just the value and the imagination and all these things. My mind was so stimulated and I was just hooked. Reading a novel, my mind was just turned on. All right, I already talked about predict what happens. You know, what do you think is going to happen next? Make positive, encouraging comments while they're reading, and make it fun. Don't make it a job. All right, number 6. Limit your child's media. So there's a lot of things influencing our children. Active parents filter and limit what they can by realizing that the best filter is the child's own mind. We can control a lot of things, but as we're raising and teaching our children, we want them to be self-disciplined. We want them to kind of have that knowledge of knowing the difference between right and wrong and good and bad, making those healthy choices on themselves or by themselves. But as we're raising them, we do that by respectfully monitoring that the negative things we're going to protect them from, and then we're going to open up the positive things and let them in, just like those first 5 active things to do for child success. We're going to do those things to let it in, but then we need to filter out the negatives. So we really need to know how much time they spend online. We really need to monitor that, right? Help your child use the websites effectively and give them website literacy on what websites they're going to. What are they learning from those websites? Now, kids have their own websites that entertain them, But we need to get into their world and say, what do you like about this website? Why do you visit this website? What are you getting from this website? So to work with them on how to use those resources. And if they start going to some resources that maybe are not the best for them, age appropriate or content appropriate, then we really need to start filtering that out. And we can do that by, some of the locks, parental locks and filters that we put on them.
And that reminds me of that training, Joe, if you don't mind if I interrupt.
Please.
For a minute. Last night, Joe and I went to a training from the people that do the Talk Early and Talk Often program. And their speaker was talking about teenagers and pornography. And I was a little disappointed in it because I wanted to know more about how you broach those subjects, because they're talking about talk early and talk often. And it would have been, Joe and I have that kind of information just because of our jobs. But if I was a parent coming into that, I would have learned an awful lot about about pornography as a business. And I would have learned a lot about what kids garner about themselves just from being part of that. Accidentally not falling into it, but accidentally seeing it, because it's easy to do that when you're online looking for stuff, unless there's protections on your screen. But, the stuff that kids learn about themselves, like being a female or being a male, was really important. And I thought to myself, boy, this is one of those discussions that parents don't ever have with their kids. It's such a difficult discussion to have. Nobody wants to talk to their kids about anything that has to do with sex. But one of the good things that she did say was teachable moments, and not being a shaming parent, but a parent who's approachable, by telling them, what's normal for their age. And I just thought it was important because parents as filters can make a big difference in how kids think about themselves. And I think when they think well of themselves and they value themselves, naturally they're gonna do better in life. And it was making me think of that, how much we have to be filters as parents, not just with that, but with anything. And if you're not approachable, if you're not the type of parents that kids can come and talk to about that kind of stuff, you have to make those opportunities to say, hey, I saw this, I saw that. What do you think? That seemed like to be the big thing there in a lot of trainings that I've gone to. What do you think? So that you know what to start off with when you know their level of understanding. Just made me think of that last night.
Yeah, very good point. And I think the point to top that also is the difference between snooping and monitoring. Right. So we want to make sure that we filter these things out. We have the child safety things on the internet and their access to certain websites and things. And we need to do that objectively. We need to do that to say, hey, I need to make sure that you're safe on the internet. Yeah. So I'm going to, if they have any social media websites and stuff, that you need to say, I need your passwords. I need to make sure you're safe. And I'm going to monitor you. And when you do monitor them and you see that they visited maybe an inappropriate site, then what Teresa says, we need to talk about that. What's going on this site? I'm concerned about this. And I need to talk to you about it. And these are what I know about these sites. And then you give your education, and then you tell them why that you're going to block them from these sites. We don't do it punitively. We don't do it by judging, blaming, humiliating. We do it out of concern and love. So approach it out of concern and love, right? They're kids. They're going to stumble on some things. They're going to hear some things from their peers. They're going to come home and say, what is this about? And they're going to Google it and see some things they shouldn't see. But if we jump on that harshly with punitive, punishing, controlling, remember that circle, that dictatorship, then they're going to start being more sneaky. They might not get caught next time, because there's a lot of ways that kids know how to manipulate that internet that you have no idea about. So one of them is, they're called Vault apps. Has anybody heard of Vault apps, privacy apps?
Yeah.
Yeah, they're applications. What do you know about them, Alan?
Just vaguely that, that they can compartmentalize, like your phone is basically a computer, and it's sort of like a sector inside of the thing where they can put passwords, and basically it's invisible to you unless you know exactly what to look for.
Yeah, they have apps that hide other apps.
Yeah.
They're called Vault apps. So one app could look just like a calculator. Then the parent will click on the calculator app, and they can do 1 million times 100,000, and it works as a calculator. It's an innocent calculator app. But if you put that code in there, 5732, whatever the kid picks, then it opens up behind the calculator all the hidden apps that you don't want them to have. So a parent monitors and say, oh, there's a calculator app, let me check it out. Calculator works. But what they don't know is the secret code to get behind it. Now, if you want to know if your child does have some of these, they call them Vault apps or privacy apps, get their phone by saying, all right, let me, give me your phone, because you're going to monitor them. You're not going to sneak. We're not going to snoop, because if we snoop, then they hide more stuff. It breaks the trust. But I'm going to monitor. So I can get their phone, and I can go to the app store on their phone. And I could do a search for Vault apps, and then a list of Vault apps will come up, and you can see if there's that cloud that they downloaded it already, or if it says get, which means they didn't buy it yet, even though they're free. Some of them are free, some of them you pay for. So you can do the search on their what did I just call it? That app store. And if it says downloaded, you see that that cloud, that means they have it already. All right, so we really need to know. So before it says put the computer in a general area, so they're not in corners of the room. But now, man, there's a lot of kids who are connected to the internet. I don't know what percentage of people have, young school-age children have smartphones. So it's kind of hard to put that computer in an area where you walk by and you can look at the screen as you're walking by, because kids have access to the internet in many ways. Any comments or questions about this one? And in parenting, has anybody had any insider information on some of the ways kids get away with stuff, or anything that you guys know that you can educate us on?
What's even more dangerous is a lot of those sites, predators, and if you're a 12 or 13-year-old, let's say, my brother is going through this right now. He has a 13-year-old, without a whole lot of details. She's in treatment and everything else about some guy, got her attention, and it's just a big hot mess. I mean, she's undergoing psychiatric treatment.
Wow. Yes. So these kids aren't old enough to know how to be responsible online. So parents really need to monitor the times, the sites, even some of the music they listen to. If they're listening to music, even some inappropriate music with the language or the sex or the drugs or something like that, instead of yelling and controlling that, if you're in the car, say, what do you like about this music? Those lyrics, what do those lyrics mean to you? Instead of putting on the kibosh that you will not listen to that. Does anybody know Cheech and Chong? When I grew up, we loved Cheech and Chong. Oh my gosh, they were hilarious. And drug culture. But my parents wouldn't let us listen to Cheech and Chong. So we used to, I remember with the headphones and a little cassette kind of player, we used to hide under the beds listening to Cheech and Chong and not get caught by our parents. Instead of my parents sitting me down, talking about Cheech and Chong, talking about their values, talking about why we as kids like it so much? What are we getting from it? So have those open conversations instead of just putting the kibosh on anything that goes against our values.
You know, I did that with Luke when he was little because my son is 31 now, but when he was like 14 years old, he used to listen to Eminem all the time, and I couldn't stand Eminem because of all the gay bashing and all the, women bashing that he did. And I knew if I said, you're not going to listen to that music anymore, it would be the first thing he always listened to. He'd sneak around and do it. So I said, Lucas, just tell me what it is that you like about this. And so he played me stuff that he liked, and I listened to it. And, now I like him, but then I didn't. And so I listened to it patiently, and I listened to why he liked it. And I said, would you be willing to just hear me out for a few minutes? And so I talked about gay bashing, and I talked about women, the way he talks about women. And, uh, we had a nice discussion about it. He was willing to listen to me because I listened to him, the whole thing, the whole 9 yards that he had, whatever it was that he had to say. And so he said, I know how I've always known how you feel about that type of thing, talking about people that way. And he goes, just because I listen to it doesn't mean I feel that way. And blah, blah, blah. So we had a good, so he continued to listen to it. I knew he would, but and I knew that there was going to be more than that anyway. There'd be other things if it wasn't Eminem. So I felt it was more important to make sure that he understood what our family morals were about that. So,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah, that's great, because this bullet point here in the book, it says develop a clear set of guidelines for using the internet or their music or whatever it is. So we need to directly have that open conversation, ask them those questions. But then after they talk and share, then we say, well, our family, our values are that we don't use this language, or that we have a no use drug rule, or that violence is only used to protect yourself if you're in a violent, threatening situation. So we need to really communicate directly what our family values are. Just like Luke says, well, I listen to it, but I don't believe in that. Well, that's great, because our family values are A, B, and C, and X, Y, and Z. I'm just concerned about the music that might influence, children or youth, your age, that they might normalize, that these songs might normalize some of those things. And I'm so glad to hear that you don't believe in them. You just like the beat and the drive of the bass and whatnot. So have those, because it really builds that trusting, loving, concerning relationship. When I was growing up, I hated my father. And I said, if I do everything the opposite of him, I'd be fine.
Right.
I grew up hating him. It's like, I'll just do the opposite of what he did. But I knew what not to do, but I didn't know what to do. So I used the same mindset to say, I want my kid to be behind the schoolyard and have somebody offer him a joint. And I wanted him to say, I don't want that joint because my dad will kill me. I wanted that, the fear of dad, or the fear of God, or whatever fear you want to put in him or her. But after I met Teresa and got this new education, I want my kid to be behind the schoolyard. I want somebody to offer him a joint, and I want him to say, no, I don't want that. That's stupid. It's illegal and it's bad for my brain, and I don't need your approval, and I don't need to do it. That's what I want. I want him to make that choice out of values, not out of fear that dad will kill him. Big transition in my mind in our relationship. Oh, so we talked about some of these. We talked about all of these, actually. Having policies. All right. Yeah, we talked about many or all of these. Stay informed. Know what kids may be doing online, right? Take some, like that webinar Teresa and I took last night. It was on teenagers and pornography, right? Tune into the world and see what kids are getting into. And once you know the risks, then we have what they're called prevention talks. in a prevention talk, this support the school discipline plan. I have a video here I want to show you about a drug talk with your child. So these family talks I'm about to show you about alcohol and tobacco, but these family talks could be about anything. They could be about sex, violence, bullying, drugs, dating, whatever it is. We're going to have this talk and you'll see how the parents approach it. Oh, I better share computer sound.
Is this Jordan or is
Yes.
this the older kid? Okay.
No, this is Jordan talking about drugs with his mom and dad.
Okay.
Teresa, give me a thumbs up if you can hear it.
Okay.
Our seventh smart thing that active parents do to help their child succeed in school is to support their school's discipline plan. Smart parents know that it's impossible to filter every negative influence out of a child's life. So it's important that children learn how to do some filtering for themselves. Make sure your kids know that they are expected to follow school rules and that there will be consequences at home as well as at school for breaking them. Take time to talk about the rules, supporting them with both accurate information and family values. Your kids will not only be less likely to test the rules, they will also be more likely to make good decisions for themselves when you aren't around, and ultimately, they'll be in a better position to succeed. Let's take a look at how the Moore family uses a family talk to help counteract some of the harmful messages about tobacco, alcohol, and other drugs that may reach their children in the coming years.
We call this meeting to talk about 3 of the biggest problems that kids face today: tobacco, alcohol, and other drugs.
Drugs?
Sure. I mean, it's something that all families need to talk about, especially with so many movies and other types of entertainment saying that this stuff is cool or even funny. In your school, they have a very clear policy against students using drugs.
We've pulled your school's discipline policy on the website, and let's look it over, and then we want to hear what you think.
The family talk is a certain type of meeting that serves to help children handle upcoming challenges with knowledge, courage, and integrity. Among these challenges, the risk of our kids using tobacco, alcohol, and other drugs is certainly high on all our lists, and talking about them early can help lay a good foundation for later, when your child will undoubtedly be tempted to try them. Be sure to find out your child's school's policy about this and include it in your talk. 4 simple guidelines will help you make the most of your family talks. First, plan your introduction and the key points you want to cover. It's a good idea to plan a simple opening statement like the one we just saw Jeffrey use to introduce the topic. Think ahead about what you want to communicate and write down a few of the key points. Then you can be sure to cover everything you want to and get your message across. Another useful guideline is to use open-ended questions to stimulate discussion. A family talk is meant to be a discussion, not a lecture, so it's important that you ask good questions and use active communication to listen and respond to your children's answers.
To begin with, what do you already know about why tobacco, alcohol, and other drugs are so dangerous? We really want to know what you think, Jordan, so help us out here. What have you learned about this in school? And why do you think your school has such a strict policy against them?
Well, I know drugs can kill you.
That's right. I mean, we've all heard about people who have died from an overdose or drinking and driving or a disease caused by smoking. I mean, all this stuff can kill you.
Now, what else have you heard?
Drugs can make you do really weird stuff.
Good point. Hey, drugs affect the brain in ways that can interfere with normal thinking. And people under that influence are quicker to get into fights or wreck their cars or just say or do really, really dumb things that seem cool while they're high.
By encouraging your child's participation, you show that you respect him and want to hear his ideas, and this makes it much more likely that your message will get through. But make sure you follow our 3rd family talk guideline, which is to avoid communication blocks. That means not criticizing, judging, preaching, or otherwise saying or doing something that will shut down the conversation.
But don't drugs make you feel good?
But that's the problem, right? I mean, drugs may make people feel good at first, but then the next day when they have a really bad hangover or down the road when they're addicted, they can really get into a lot of trouble.
And that's the truth. So in the long run, Drugs can cause a lot more pain than they do pleasure.
Then why do you and Mom drink?
Well, you have to keep in mind that drinking for adults is legal, but not for kids. And that's because when you're still growing, alcohol can affect the development of a healthy brain. And even for adults, it's not smart to drink too much. Here's a question. Have you ever seen me and Mom drunk or using illegal drugs?
No.
And you won't either. And adults who do that are risking their health and harming their bodies.
I know a kid whose parents let his big brother smoke and drink beer sometimes.
When Jeffrey and Nicole allow their son to express his own thoughts, they show him that they value open communication. This helps set the stage for our fourth guideline: share your values persuasively.
Sure. And some families may not really be aware of all the dangers. But let's be clear that in our family, it's never okay for a kid to smoke or drink, not even a little bit. And it's never okay for anyone at any age to do any illegal drugs. This is pretty similar to your school's policy. So if you follow our family rules, you'll be okay at school too.
I know a lot of kids feel pressured to experiment with drugs because the older kids are using them. But it takes a lot of courage and character to do the right thing and say no.
And it takes a lot of practice. So maybe we should talk about some ways that you could say no without feeling foolish. Okay? So what would you say if someone offered you a cigarette?
The Moores continue asking questions and practicing what Jordan might do in tough situations, but they are careful not to let the conversation go on too long. It's better to have lots of short talks on these subjects over the years than one big talk and think you are done. And don't feel that you have to provide all the information yourself. In fact, our fifth guideline is to find support materials. By using articles, videos, and the internet, you can provide more information in an interesting way. And of course, you will want to follow up on any materials you use with more discussion.
This has been a great talk. I mean, you have some really good ideas, yeah? Right, Mom? And look, since there's so much to know about this subject, we thought you might want to watch a video, short video that we found online, okay? And then maybe we can talk about it. All right, here we go.
So when did Jordan start getting more comfortable in sharing? First he said, I don't know.
I think that he had to understand the situation wasn't threatening and that he wasn't going to be stigmatized by speaking his mind. You know.
Yeah, if they speak their mind and we're like, what? And then we stomp on that, it's called a communication block. Then that child's like, you just asked my opinion. I told you that marijuana is good for you, and you're going to tell me I'm an idiot. No, you say, wow, so you heard that marijuana is legal and it's good for you now. Where'd you hear that? What do you think about that? And I would ask those open-ended questions. But before I go into that, this should have been after this trouble at school. When your kid does get in trouble at school, we really need to stay calm. I mean, a lot of parents' head pops off because their mind is like, oh my God, they're going to be dropouts. They're going to be this, they're going to be that. Just stay calm. Treat it like another parenting problem, or I should actually change parenting problem to parenting challenge. Right? This is just another parenting challenge. We need skills and tools to deal with these challenges. Most important is active communication, which Teresa and I have a separate training on active communication that we'll be doing soon. Use it as a learning opportunity. So instead of thinking this is a horrible failure, that was a tough choice that you made, and now this happened, and now you have suspension or extra homework or whatever the consequence is. This is a learning opportunity. It's not a failure to that child, but we can make it a failure if we dump all of our fear-based parenting on that. It's a mistake from a child, a youth that's brain isn't developed yet. We can express the importance of it through our love and our concern instead of our, how could you, this will not happen again. Once that anger gets in there, then that child's like, I don't want to talk to you anymore. And then avoid the temptation to rescue. Oh my goodness, tell me if this happens in the parenting or the teacher world. Parents go there and my kid did not do that, right? I'm going to rescue my kid. I'm going to get a lawyer. I'm going to get him back in school. I'm going to do whatever it takes and rescue my kid. All you're teaching that child is that they can do what they want and mom or dad is going to bail me out. I mean, it really stinks to have the child deal with the consequence of their behavior that might affect their, their future, but they need to know that this choice is going to affect your future. Because if you bail them out, man, I remember I got a transporting open intoxicants when I was younger, before I was 21. And my dad got a lawyer, a friend of a friend's lawyer, and got me off. Great, I didn't have that on my record, but I didn't learn until a few more situations I was in. But bailing them out doesn't save them from anything. It's teaching them that there is an easy way out. So when we do have these family talks, plan what is your introduction? How are you going to do it? What is the problem? What are the key points? And then you need to get them in the conversation by open-ended questions and making a conversation and not a lecture. Then we talked about communication blocks. We'll talk about that deeper. Even if they say, I'm going to drop out of school, don't let your head pop off. Say, wow, what would happen if you dropped out of school? Well, I get a full-time job and I'll make a lot of money and no big deal and blah, blah, blah. Say, well, and then just keep asking them open-ended questions. And once they get their thoughts and feelings out, then they'll be more willing to listen to our thoughts and feelings. But if we start with our thoughts and feelings first, we shut them down. So we need to share our values persuasively, like a back door entrance instead of that forceful front door entrance. You're going to make a lot more persuasion if you do it in a active communication way, which we'll talk about, in one of the other trainings. But we can't force them. We can't aggressively, fear-based tell them, don't you ever do it, I'm going to rip your head off. Then find support materials. That's what he did about that video. The dad says, I got a little video I want you to watch.
When I see that video, I think of that the very first time Joe saw it, he goes, I don't like when that kid said that to his parents about, you and mom drink. And I said, that's he looks like he's 10 to me, that little boy. I said, that's 10-year-old logic, though. If it's so bad, why are you doing it? And that's teachable moment. The way the dad answered it. You never see us driving drunk or even just drunk. I think that's what he said. You never see us getting drunk. I liked the way he answered that instead of being offended, the dad.
Yeah. In the teenage version of this, the dad gets really, what did you say he was gonna, because he got triggered. And the mom was like, hold on, wait. And she put him back on track. So that was really great that both parents kind of were there. So when I lose it, that the other parent. So family meetings here, having these family meetings weekly or as often, once a week or, once a month or whatever it could be, that it really helps that family feel like a team. We talk about challenging things together. We respect and solve problems. We have a place where I know I'll be heard. So family meetings, you can have something on the refrigerator, family meeting agenda. And if your kid's like, she keeps on doing this, and they get all complaining about something, say, you know what, I don't have time right now. Put it on the family agenda on the refrigerator, and we'll talk about it at the family meeting this Sunday. That way, that kid knows that they're going to have a place to be heard. They say always, kids might not, have their way. They might not always get their way, but they should always get their say. We need to know what they feel. We need to know their point of view. But our point of view always takes over. They don't get their way, but they do get their say. And I think I'm done here. All right, folks, we're coming to the end here. What did you like? What can you use? When can you use it?
I think it's important to understand that, there was a philosophy of parenting about kids should be seen and not heard. I mean, that was,
Yeah.
that might have, well, I don't think it ever worked, but, you know, it certainly was something that a lot of, especially, you know, my parents employed it to a certain degree, you know, and well, I turned out in my 20s to be rebellious as hell.
Mhm.
You know, if I saw a keep off the grass sign, I wanted to go on the grass, you know, that kind of thing, you know,
Sure.
until, you know, life burns you a couple of different ways and you learn either, you know, you gotta fit in, you gotta follow rules and so forth and so on.
Yeah. Yep. And another thing about, I'm going to use it in discipline. Like I always hear, you know, I was spanked and I turned out all right. And I
Yeah.
always say, did you really turn out all right? Do you have any anger issues? You got any relationship problems? You got any mental health stuff going on? You got that baggage from your childhood? But if you did turn out all right, I always say you turned out all right in spite of the spanking, not because of the spanking, or in spite of the control, not because of the
Right.
control. You made it because of your resiliency and your temperament and your personality and stuff. But you do the same that was done to you, to your child, they're not you. They might
Right.
take it in a total different way.
Right.
Being raised obedient worked for you, but you try to get obedience from your child, who you might have a rude awakening becoming because they're not you.
And the world has gotten a lot more complex. The kids have to be able to critically think through some situations without necessarily this outside set of directions that they need to live by, this code or whatever. You know, the decision tree is gotten to be a, you know, you know, really, 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 really a difficult proposition these days.
Yeah. And one more point I want to make about that whole philosophy of this happened to me and I turned out all right was now you have an adult brain. You have that prefrontal cortex right behind your forehead. So now you're 40, 30, 40, 50 years old. And you can say, well, I'm glad dad beat me because, you know, he made me a strong person. And look at me now. I'm glad dad did that. That's because you're using a rational brain. But what'd you think when you were 12-year-olds getting beat by your dad? Did you say, oh, dad, thank you for beating me. You know, I was bad and I'm glad you beat me because I'm learning so much from your whooping. No, you were like, I hate you. Don't you touch me. Yeah. But when you're an adult, you're rational. So you can never look back to when you were a teenager and think about how you felt when you were a teenager because your rational brain is going to take over and says, I'm glad mom did this. But when you were 10 or 12, you weren't glad mom was doing that. But now with your rational brain, you're like, see, I became me because of what my mom did. You became you because of your resiliency and what you went through and how you processed it. And that's my last statement off of my soapbox. We got to break that generational curse of things that were unhealthy.
And it has to do with balance too. I mean, you know, my mother was a disciplinarian, but she also showed me love too. You know, it's not like all I got was the rod. I mean, I got the hugs too.
Sure.
So, you know, if every time you show up and your mom's drunk beating the devil out of you, that's a whole different situation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. My mom was a nurturer. My dad, if that part of your mother wasn't there, or if my mother, the nurturer, wasn't there, who knows what I would have turned out to be if I had all father in me.
Yeah. Exactly.
Thank you guys for your attention, and I appreciate you guys showing up every week. Valuable.
Thanks for your insight, Alan. That was great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Y'all have a great evening. Okay. Take care, everybody.
Thank you guys for joining.
Mhm.
Have a great weekend. We'll see you next week.
All right.
Ooh, next week is the value of fathers.
It is. It is.
Yes.
It's going to be a good one.
Yeah, it is a good one.
Going to be a good one.
Well,
presentation went very well. I was surprised that there was not more engagement.
yeah, at first I was going to fish for a lot of engagement because I thought this was a short PowerPoint slide kind of. I didn't think I was going to, you know, take the whole hour. But as I was going through, I'm like, oh, you know, I could probably, you know, make this an hour. But I could have made them put them on the spot and ask for more pauses and
Yeah,
more
yeah.
feedback.
I think several people were reflecting very
And
thoughtfully,
yeah, I hope so.
you
Yeah,
know.
the recording's still on. You got the recording on still?
Oh, I do. Thank you. I can
Yes.
edit that out.
Oh, good. You have editing power.
I can edit all of that out.
Although that everything was said was perfectly fine. You know, people were
Yeah.
processing.
Yeah.
I could have held them to the fire a little bit more, but you know, if somebody really has something to say, you know, I would hopefully that they would say it.
Sure, sure.
Alan had a lot to say. That was nice, you know.
Yeah,
He-
yeah, he does. Alan provides a lot of insightful feedback during the sessions when he attends, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this is an odd one because you're all educators. Are you all teachers and educators, right?
Yes.
So for me telling you guys how to educate or what's effective, it's almost like preaching to the choir.
It sort of is. However, I believe that teaching is not just a job, it is a gift. And everyone doesn't have the gift or the artfulness to teach and instruct. There are some people that will give an instruction and you're just so like, oh my God. And then there are some people that will give the same instruction and you get it, you connect, there's engagement, you know, all of the above. Lights are flashing and bells are ringing, because I think a lot of people, although they have empathy and compassion, are not
Oh,
necessarily meant
patient.
to be, yeah, they're not necessarily meant to be teachers, you know.
Yeah.
They like the idea of it, and you know, maybe even, I don't know, but everybody's not
Cut out to be
really are
that
not. They really are.
nurturing teacher.
Oh my God.
You know what I hear, and I've seen myself, that a lot of teachers are amazing teachers. They have the most awesome skills and patience at work, but at home.
All right, thank you so much for joining us today in our social emotional workshop. And we will see you all next week, where we will be talking again about another social emotional subject that will help us in dealing with our students and our children and our young people. Thanks so much. I'm Toni Curitan, and everyone have a great day.